Yo, what up guys, it's Flark, and welcome to my guide on how to kill literally the entire enemy team in rated battlegrounds as a DK. This guide is pretty much just going to be how to be as productive as possible in an RBG setting on DK. A lot of people have been asking and requesting this guide be made because my stream content is generally just RBGs, but my YouTube videos are primarily focused around arena gameplay, which is a very fair point. I actually can't argue with that at all. Honestly, I should have made this video ages ago. But it's here now. This is going to be an RBG-centric guide, which means the differences in talents and itemization between RBGs and arenas. We'll focus on that. Of course, how to do that absolutely nuclear AoE go that can destroy entire team fights, and how to be mechanically sound in the objective play of RBGs. We'll even go over that. There's a lot of different things to do in RBG maps rather than just kill things. Silver Shard Mines is a great example. Temple and Twin Peaks, all of these maps have different objectives that our toolkit actually is extremely potent for. Now, we don't have Sap into Blind, but we have some tools that no other class has that makes RBGs for DKs actually really prominent. We are a staple of the meta for expansion after expansion after expansion because of our inherent toolkit. It doesn't matter how the meta develops, DKs are generally a pretty high focal point. Now, important to note, I did end up getting hero last season, not to brag. We were like 300 points over. It's not a bragging point. It's because if you've watched my stream, you know that I generally do RBGs with viewers on stream, which is around 1800 MMR. I don't want people to think that the content of this video would be only functional at 1800 MMR. So yes, we were at like 2750 last season. DK is extremely strong at all ratings, and if you understand these basic things and even more of the advanced things that I'm going to teach you in this guide, or if you understand it already, you should be able to easily get RBG rating on your own and not be stuck at 18. Like as if that would be something that would happen. You'd be able to skyrocket past that and search for the stars, try and get your own hero title if that's something that appeals to you at all. But there you go. We're gonna get right into it. Of course, there's going to be timestamps below, as I always do, to centralize the information that we want into categories. And if there's a category that you care most about, you don't feel like listening to me talk like I always do, you can just go skip right to that timestamp and you should be able to get the information that you desire. But we're going to start it off, and we're going to start it off with a very burning question. That is Frost versus Unholy. And I'm going to tackle this one first so I can just get it out of the way. Both DK specs are really, really, really good in RBGs. They do a ton of damage. They have A-Bomb Limb. They have Death Grip. They both do. That's awesome. But of course, if I were to answer this question perfectly accurately, of course, there is a certain spec that's toolkit is more defined for having 10 players on the enemy team. Now, Unholy brothers, do not be mad at me. I just gave you an entire update video on how Unholy is taking over the threes ladder and how you can shoot yourself straight to Glad because of these insane comps that are on the rise right now. But of course, I would have to give the nod to Frost in an RBG setting. While they both do nuclear AoE damage and have A-Bomb Limb and have Grip, only one spec has a 4-second stun on a 45-second cooldown that stuns their entire team. And then if that's not enough, a long-range sniper shot AoE stun instant with no resource cost and no ramp up. That has a pretty short cooldown as well, that even goes so far it can hit the healers in the back of a team fight because this thing shoots with a huge radius sweeping across the map, meaning while most AoE stuns only get everybody around you, Frostworm's Fury, which we've got hovered on the screen right there, hits everybody around you. Oh, and also their casters in their back that are free casting bolts, the healers that are trying to heal. You have so much disruption as Frost, and when there's 3 people on an enemy team in an arena, maybe that doesn't trump Unholy this season. I don't think it does. But when there's 10 players on the enemy team and 8 of them, or even more, considering it could be Temple or Silver Shard, maybe 9, maybe even 10, are on an RBG, that utility gets way better. Not to mention that you still have Blind, which is an off DR. Unholy doesn't have any access to off DR things. It's all stuns. But Frost has a Blind as well. So out of massive AoE stuns. You can also do another pseudo CC or actual long CC if you can get it on healers that aren't being touched. That's another 5-second different DR crowd control effect, which is also AoE and also slows. I mean, it's just so much compounding value for Frost in an RBG setting. Again, there are 10 people, not 3 or 2 like arenas, but it doesn't even stop there, because the 4-set gap between Frost and Unholy are absolutely absurd. Unholy is fantastically designed for destroying somebody as Unholy Fury in 3s, but the 4-set doesn't really aid for that in an RBG setting much at all. Frost's 4-set gives you a glacial advance that hits every single person that you've hit in this radius. Of course, your 2-set gives you crit chance, which is just fine when it scales up with more people in an RBG. And then that glacial advance applies Razor Ice to all of those people that you just cleaved, which gives you something you didn't even have last season, and access to AoE Razor Ice. You didn't even have access. You could not apply Razor Ice easily in an AoE situation last season. So that means you're getting a 15% damage buff that you never had prior to getting this 4-set. Oh, but that's not all, because now you don't have to run Razor Ice on your weapon because you got a better version of it right there. So you can run Fallen Crusader, which is another 15% strength, which on top of all your strength modifiers is Frost. Please tell me you can see where I'm going with this. Frost's AoE damage, so destructive, even more so with the 4-set. It's AoE CC, so destructive. So yes, of course, realistically, practically, Frost is going to take the edge in an RBG setting. Does it mean you can't play Unholy? No, God forbid. If you really can't play Frost, you can't touch it with a 6-foot pole. You're like, no, fuck that spec, it has 2 buttons. Fine. Play Unholy, you're certain to be able to still push rating. Your A-bomb Limgos are still going to do absurd damage. But if you're gonna make me answer that question, realistically, Frost. I'm gonna get that out of the way now so we can go on with the rest of our video. But we're gonna talk about both specs in this video, and we're gonna go on to how to build differently from arenas to RBGs, and we'll start with Frost because it's my nod in the 2. But let's take a look at these talents. For Frost in RBGs, you're not gonna swap a thing. This is the easiest loadout you've ever made for looking at one of my videos anyway, because you know how much I love situational choices. Well, to heck with all that, he says, uncharacteristically. In RBGs, you're gonna lock this down. Every single one of these PvE talents is a certainty. They're all the best RBG PvE talents, especially we just talked about blind. Completely non-negotiable. Even the PvP talents are the same way. I just talked about how valuable Dead of Winter is. It's even more valuable. It's a huge peeling tool and a massive AoE disruption in every single team fight. Chill Streak in Arena sometimes had games where it wasn't so good. You would queue into Wizards, they wouldn't stack, you wouldn't get value out of it. In RBGs, that's completely never going to happen. You will always get all 10 bounces of this. If you're somehow not finding a way for 2 players to be next to each other in an 8-man team fight, you've completely done your AoE wrong. Your AoE go wrong, and I'm going to be talking about that later in the guide, how to set that up. So you'll never do that wrong again after watching this video, which means run Chill Streak, because you're going to get all 10 bounces, which means you're going to do 75k damage and a 70% slow for free on a 45-second cooldown. No, there are no PvP talents that you have that are ever going to slot in here instead of Chill Streak. There's just nothing like it. It's a resource cost free 70k damage that slows a team. It's just amazing. Of course you're gonna run that. And then Dome, unlike 3s, again, remember in 3s you could just queue into Windwalker and then you can dome his Zuen, but that's not that valuable. But in RBGs, Boomies are everywhere. Locks are everywhere. Even some Frost Mages are everywhere. This thing will always get value. Now, of course, they're gonna break it, but if you've healed your healers for 175,000 damage, that's worth a button press. I mean, if they would have just died there, you've effectively saved the team fight with 1 PvP talent. It's always going to have value. They're always going to have casters. The only time I guess I recommend swapping off Dome of Ancient Shadow is if they're playing 7 warriors and 3 healers. But you're going to have to screenshot that for me, because I honestly don't think I've ever queued into 7 warriors and 3 healers, and I really have queued a lot of RBGs in my life, so you'd have to screenshot that for me. But in advance, preemptively, I would say probably swap to Bitter Chill, because then you can disrupt them, and Zone doesn't really do anything. But assuming you don't queue into that, I would keep the zone. You can heal somebody for 175k, and that can save your team fight. So boom, locked in, pause the screen, there's your talents. You're never going to swap off of them. We'll go a little bit farther with Frost to gear. Of course, gear is going to be mastery, 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 and verse. You don't need any haste at all. I'm built for 3s, so I have more haste. Don't look at me, just do what I say. All mastery all the time. If you're an RBG-centric player, you need as much mastery as possible. An extra global out of 10 doesn't really matter when every ability needs to hit as hard as possible during those earth-shattering AoE goes. More target means mastery gets more value, Rhyme procs do more damage, AoE stun, Frost Worms even does more damage, and of course Obliterate and Glacial Advance from your 4-set does way more damage. So mastery, 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 and verse. You just make everything like this. This ring has verse and mastery on it. That's what you want to do. You want to get as much of those 2 stats as you can. You'll do as much damage as possible. We already talked about Rune of the Fallen Crusader. Once you have 4-set, this is exactly what you're going to run because you apply your Razor Ice AoE and you have Fallen Crusader. Of course, you're going to run a badge because it links up with every single one of your goes. You don't even question that. No, you're not going to run a bomb, just run a badge. And finally, AoE legendaries, AoE stun legendary right here, Absolute Zero. We know that. And of course, Unity. So you're going to have a Unity for your disgusting A-bomb limb goes. You're going to have an AoE stun to get the snipe the healers in the back, and you're going to go verse mastery with these talents, and boom. That is effectively securing a fantastic build for Frost. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to theory craft. You don't have to do situational awareness. You're lucking out on this one. I've given you exactly what you want to do as much damage and be as disruptive as humanly possible in an RBG setting. For Unholy, since I promised we're still going to talk about the spec, it's still extremely powerful. I just think I would give the nod to Frost. But for Unholy, you're going to want to run, we talked about these 2 builds in the last video. This is perfect because now I can be more decisive. RBG, I guess, is the decisive bracket. Instead of all of the different builds and the combinations, the single target, the sustain versus the burst. Nope, you don't do any of that. No. You just run the burst build because Necro Bargain loses a ton of value when it's not just one person you're trying to kill, and Unholy Assault gains a ton of value because haste makes you do more damage to everybody. Army of the Damned and Necro Bargain makes you do more damage to one person. And again, you're focusing, yes, single target damage is good, but Unholy is not the burst single target that you need for that situation. He's not firing chaos bolts from the back lines. What he wants to do is pull everybody in and use as much damage as possible. So you're running the burst build. Unholy Assault, Unholy Pact, Spell Eater, Pestilent, Unholy Blight, and All Will Serve. He actually AoEs, by the way. I didn't know if you know that, but Skulker actually fires off a little AoE shot. It's a little like a scattergun, like just poof, poof. That's what he's doing. He's just firing off an AoE shot. So All Will Serve, Unholy Blight, you're pretty much running the burst pet build. Asphyxiate, Pestilent, Spell Eater, Unholy Pact, and Unholy Assault. That is locked and loaded. You're always going to run this. This is the best setup for nuclear damage as Unholy in RBGs. And of course, I love Blight. Bursting Swords also has a ton of value. This is the only talent row I would say you can mess around with. Unholy Blight gives you all the extra pet damage and applies a second dot, which does, when stacked on a bunch of people around you, actually does do a ton of AoE damage. It really does. Just hit these dummies right here. Place Unholy Blight. When you see it all stacked to maximum on all of them, it actually does a fair amount of damage as well as the pet buff. But if you really, really like the Bursting Swords effect or playstyle, it's not really a playstyle, but if you just like having it in your breakdown, yes, it will do more damage because it hits everybody around you, so that's pretty nice. But I prefer Unholy Blight. It even makes your little Skulker do more damage, so that's what I like personally. But we'll talk right now about PvP talents because Necrotic Aura is actually kind of a must in RBGs. You remember what I just talked about, how locks and boomies are really good? Yeah, it's good to make them do 8% more damage. You know, in 3v3 combat, this talent could actually be kind of useful. When you're just buffing you and your teammates' damage, well, now you have a lot more teammates, and there's a lot more targets to take 8% more magical damage. So this just blows out of proportion. I mean, if you were ever on the fritz, like, should I even run Necrotic Aura? I bet I could do a lot more damage with, I don't know, maybe I should have more utility with, like, Death's Echo. Nope. Ooh. Necrotic Aura is going to be the most game-changing thing. If there was ever a reason to play Unholy over Frost, it would be like you're playing with 3 boomies and 3 locks. You are a difference maker. That's 8% more damage to their entire team from everybody on your team, including you. Necrotic Aura is a must. I would pick this every single game forever, and I will fight somebody verbally who says otherwise, because that's just ridiculous. There's 10 players on the enemy team. Of course, this is going to be valuable. Necrotic Wound, still extremely valuable. You keep running it. Yes, it's single target focused, but like I said, this is that single target pressure you can add. While you're cleaving everybody down, you're still applying a huge MS to one target, meaning your target is going to be very difficult to heal while everybody around you is getting cleaved to death, which means while they're trying to focus healing into your target to keep them alive, everybody else is rotting to death. And that is the effect that happens in RBGs, which we're going to talk about later in the video, I promise. Timestamps below, promise. And then finally, I would recommend the same thing as I recommend with Frost. I think Zone has just as much value as Unholy as it has Frost, and for all the same reasons. I think Raise A-Bomb does actually have insane value, because remember, this is now objective play, which means rogues and other sneaky classes have so much value for capping bases, taking bases, and believe me, if you are floating back toward a base, which we'll talk about, you can pull out rogues just by, you don't have to worry about holding A-Bomb. If you just drop it down somewhere and then run around the node, you can pull out a rogue and effectively disrupt their entire idea. If you pull out a rogue and a boomy that are trying to attack a base, you've bought your team probably another 3 minutes. So this guy has a lot of utility-based value. While he's not good in team fight at all, he does have a lot of utility-based value because he can pull out the most disruptive class in RPG history, rogues. That's what rogues do. They win RBGs. They've been doing that for 10 years. But for a team fight, generally, I would say Dome. Exactly like Frost, you go all in mastery. We don't even have to worry about that conversation again. It's the exact same reason. You need as much output as possible, and your disease plus epidemic actually gets a ton of value in team fights. So your Unholy Blight hits harder, your epidemic hits harder, and your main disease hits harder, and your A-Bomb Limb hits harder. I mean, Jesus, the A-Bomb Limb damage in an initial team fight with 6 players all grouped in taking those A-Bomb Limb ticks, you're gonna laugh. It's gonna do like 200,000 damage in one A-Bomb Limb press. You're gonna be laughing. So yes, of course, all in mastery, and then Unity plus Frenzied Monstrosity. Just makes you do 12% more damage, and damage modifiers. There's Frenzied, of course, if you need it on the screen. Dark Transformation, 12% more damage, you and your pets. Damage modifiers in an RBG setting, always good, because the more people you have, the more modifiers you get, and that's just fantastic. So Frenzied Monstrosity and Unity, and that, my friends, are the builds. They are way more locked in than Arena, so you don't have anything up in the air. You don't have any, oh, well, I don't really understand the situation. You want me to switch? Can you clarify that? No, you're good. No more switching. For RBGs, you can lock yourself in on exactly this stat priority, exactly these talents, exactly those legendaries, and you will love it. You will not feel like you're missing anything. Your damage will be nuclear and your goes will be potent. And that's your builds as Frost and Unholy. So now I wanted to briefly touch about, since we got gearing and talents and everything out of the way, I wanted to briefly touch on one thing, because you know you're running Necrolord, so I don't have to talk about the Borrowed Power Covenant system, right? You're running Necrolord. You're always running Necrolord. You're never going to swap off Necrolord. You're running Necrolord. But one thing that Unholy would do differently is Bonesmith. Both Frost or Unholy, this is great, they all link up in so many ways. Both Frost and Unholy are running Bonesmith. This is because Carver's Eye, while it's pretty good for 3s, especially when you're running into pet classes where you can get this benefit all the time, it's nuclear for RBGs. You're effectively going to have this up permanently. Just think about that. You're going to have a 5 stack of 136 mastery up permanently. What is that? What is that, 650? That's so much mastery. Permanently. I don't have to explain to you why that's going to do so much damage, right? That's Frost and Unholy's best stat in RBG being modified by so much all game, because there's so many targets to refresh this that you're just going to keep it up forever. So you are going to be doing as much damage as possible, which we've already talked about how that's so potent. And then, of course, the other things are fine. You can just run for Frost. I would run Ymri's Arsenal. This gives you crit chance. Crit chance is pretty good for Frost. You have the Remorseless Winter 2 set to proc that more often, and it always procs in your go, making you crit more with Brittle Grasp, and of course, Rhyme procs and everything. So you would run down this row. And for Unholy, you would just keep the triple potency setup with Brittle Grasp, Convocation, and Eternal Hunger. But yeah, Bonesmith for RBGs. Who would have thunk it? Me, because it's really, really good. And so should you. You should also think that because it's so very clear that Carver's Eye, if Carver's Eye didn't exist, you would never even look at this Soulbind, but it does. And this is a must equip for RBGs. So now you've answered. Now I hope that I've answered every single like itemization, gearing, build type question that you could possibly have. That's Covenant, Soulbinds, Legendaries, Talents, Gearing, that's all of it, and Trinkets even. So that is how you create your character. But now, well, how do you play your character, right? And first I'm going to talk about all the different maps and some of our toolkit and how they work on those maps so well. Then I'm going to talk about the Go. I'm saving the best for last. The Go meaning when you're on Gilneas, two teams are clashing, 8v8, 9v9, right in a pile. What do you do to do the most disruption, damage, and get their team dead so your team can cap the flag? That's what I call the Go, right? The AoE Go, the setup, the nuclear burst, that thing. I'm going to talk about that last because I'm going to go over some gameplay. I know you guys are always asking for this. Some gameplay of me doing it. I'll talk about a few different examples, so it's not just like that one time it went perfectly. If you've watched my stream, you know it happens every game. Literally, most of my callouts are just, I'm going to kill their entire team here. They're all dead. Haha, laugh, laugh, laugh. It's so fun. Everybody loves Flark, but except for the people who don't. But that is what I'm going to talk about at the last bit of the video, and I'm going to talk about it with some gameplay to comment over. So first, we're talking about the rest of our toolkit. Why is DK such a center point? Well, we have this ability, Death Grip. Then we have this ability, 65 Death Grips. And then we have this ability, Chains of Ice. 70% slow. Non-DRable. 30-yard range, can't be dispelled, low resource cost. That's really good. Some of these maps are huge. Think about the maps. Let's take a look, right? These specific battlegrounds, I think you can even show them up right here on the screen. Warsong Gulch, huge map. Twin Peaks, massive sprawling map. People need to get from one place to another. Silver Shard Mines, huge map. People need to get from one cart to another. And you can stop that from happening. You control the power to stop players from getting where they need to be. How are you going to be doing this? When should I be doing this? Well, pretty much all the time. But let's talk map to map. Silver Shard Mines is a perfect example. Silver Shard Mines, you played it. It's the one with 3 carts going into the capture points, and whoever gets the most carts is going to win it, because once you get to 1,500 points by the carts, you win the game. In Silver Shard Mines, one of the biggest things is if a team is losing a team fight, they need to get from one cart to another. And that is what a DK stops them from doing. What you can effectively do is kidnap their healers by just gripping them back, ripping them over to you, chains one, tab, chains the other, tab, chains the third. They can't do anything to heal for each other because they cannot dispel each other. It is an undispellable slow. So what you do is you, in a team fight, you're going to do that Go that I'm going to talk about later. But outside of team fights, when you're like, okay, what am I doing on this map right now? We're not trying to kill their entire team. We're actually trying to get the off carts. The off carts, the carts where the team fight is not centralized. I am trying to get my team over there without their team getting over there, so we have more bodies in the cart and we can turn it. And how you do that is chains, tab, chains, tab, chains. Now I have my tab set to target nearest enemy player, so my tab isn't going to target these training dummies, but that's what you can do. And you're going to stop any of them from moving, right? So when it's clear, your leader, maybe you as the leader, you're recognizing that the enemy team is trying to peel. So peel meaning leave the current spot, get the heck out of town, and get somewhere else. It is your job to just completely stop that. You have grip, you pull them back, you chains all 3, then your grip comes off cooldown, you grip another person back, chaining everything, right? You can peel melee from getting to the cart, so you can just change them. You can keep them off your healers. Chains of Ice, the best button. You can also grip people into bad situations, right? You don't have to just grip them away from where they want to be, as in they're trying to get to a different place. You can grip them away from where they want to be, like gripping them into the middle of a team fight. And then in the middle of a cart, like let's say there's a lock, free casting, right on the outside of that Silver Shard Mines cart. And he's destroying your whole team. Just grip him right into the middle of the cart. Now he's where the death zone is. And it's very hard for a lock to cast as much when there's 6 melee on top of him in the middle of a cart than when he was just sitting on the outside, right? So These are those tools, and they work out on every map. That was the Silver Shard Mines example. Of course, like I said, there's going to be gameplay examples. I know you need more visual representation. We're going to talk through some of these strategies first. We'll get to the visuals in a second. But that concept, that idea of chains of ice, stopping players from going where they want to go, can be applied to any map, right? If you're looking at Temple and you're trying to make sure that their orbs don't get away, chains of ice, grip, chains of ice. If you're talking about Twin Peaks, this is a perfect example. You have a Guardian with a flag, generally. Most people run Guardian as an FC. And there are a Rogue, a Warrior, a Demon Hunter, and a Mage. Let's say in a Caster, and a Mage and a Lock. You can chains all the melee. You can blind the Lock and the Mage in the back. And you can grip the Rogue off of them, because the Rogue is the most important one. So now, you're effectively saying, I'm going to peel for you. You got to move. Communicate with your Guardian. Say, move, move, move. I've got him off you. You're fine. Go, 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 right? And you're going to limb the melee back, right? That 15 grip button. You're going to manually grip the Rogue off of him and chains him away. Now he has to slowly trek his way back to the Guardian to get any pressure. You're going to blind the Lock and the Mage in the back because you don't want to waste a grip to stop one cast. You need to grip the Rogue off of him. You need to grip the melee off of him. Gripping to stop one cast is not as disruptive as gripping to stop the entire Rogue's opener. And you can change the Mage and the Lock in the back because your Guardian's moving. Casters can't cast on the move, so effectively they have to plant themselves and cast, but now they're like, oh crap, the guy got out of my range, let me run. Oh, I'm running at 30% movement speed, guess I'll never do anything, right? And that's what a DK does. You can make their team never do anything, whether it's from your AoE stun control go, to limbing people off your FC, to chaining the casters in the back, meaning if the target that they want to hit moves, they have to move with that target, but they're only moving at 30% speed, so they're not going anywhere, right? This is what you do as a DK. Your biggest role is going to be the almighty limb go that we're, again, going to talk about very shortly with visual examples, I promise. The chains of ice being such a powerful disruption tool that has everything going for it as a slow, and nobody can get rid of it without a major button press. Like we're talking, the only sorts of things are like a shift from a druid, but guess what? A mage isn't a druid, so they can never shift no matter how much they try. Or freedom, of course, but you can press freedom on one guy, not 7, and it has a cooldown. So the disruption of chains of ice is so potent in that way. And it can be reapplied so easily once freedom or Tiger's Lust is down. So those are your big tools. Of course, everything else is very centralized around your survivability and your ability to just stay up without the need for a healer, so they can heal what they're focused on. You effectively do all this disruption while not requiring a bunch of support. A rogue, when they're doing all this disruption, can just die. If everybody says, go rogue, please kill him in a stun, get him off our guy, then yes, a rogue could just die. But you have a tool that rogues do not have. It's this one, flung around the screen. That's Death Strike. Death Strike in threes is an extremely valuable tool. We know this, but remember, it has something. It has a scale based on the amount of damage you've been taking in the last 5 seconds. And in RBGs, there's more DPS, which means there's more damage going out at all times, just mathematically. Right? There's more DPS on the enemy team, which means this button just inherently does more in RBGs than in threes. But there's another crazy thing. This button, unfortunately, to all the Frost Strike enthusiasts, does less in RBGs because your single target focused abilities are much less valuable when there's more targets to hit. So remember, Rhyme procs are actually going to way take over Frost Strikes when you're doing your limb go. And remember, you get a free Rhyme proc right there. You're going to get 3 more of these. Your globals will be more focused around chains, grip, Rhyme proc, this right here on the screen, Remorseless Winter, AoE stun, and of course obliterate, than ever pressing this button, meaning you're generally pooling runic power. So Death Strike's better, Frost Strike's worse. What's the synopsis here? What's the conclusion? You're gonna always press Death Strike all game. If you are ever taking any damage at all, you can top yourself instantly. Any global that would be used to spend runic power should generally be spent on Death Strike, unless you're like 3% away from killing somebody. Because effectively what that does is, because of how Death Strike reacts to the amount of damage you're taking, it makes you immortal. I do 1.4 million healing a game. in RBGs because of how much it just scales. It's not because I'm a god. I'm pressing one button. It's just a very, very good button in an RBG environment. So if you press Death Strike, whenever you need to, alternating cooldowns of damaging abilities, and instead of alternating it with Frost Strike, you just alternate it with Death Strike using Rhyme procs to generate Obliterate instead of Frost Strike to generate Obliterate crits, you will, without any question, stay alive, allowing you to do all of these disrupting things, right? All of this nonsense, while not requiring special support from anybody. So you can be a very disruptive class without being a squishy class, which means you have a complete lockdown hold on how a team fight is going if played properly. So we are going to get into this go now, but just remember, maps like base sitting maps, when are you chains of icing? What have you learned from this? You're just chains of icing when they're trying to peel, right? You don't have to go through every map and be like, okay, well, what about Arathi Basin? When should I chains of ice there? Well, hold on, you didn't talk about Eye of the Storm. When should I chains of ice on Eye of the Storm? Oh, hold up. Battle for Ganaeus. I don't know when to chains of ice on Battle for Ganaeus. You are doing it not in a response to the scenery and the landscape of your map, but as a response to what the enemy team is trying to do. When players are trying to peel, when players are trying to ram ranch your healer, when players are trying to get something done that requires movement, you have the answer. Keep chains up on peeling targets, keep chains up on aggressive melee, keep chains up on rogues trying to maneuver into and out of a team fight. Do that. And let's get into the good stuff right now. So, the nuclear go. We're going to talk about this as Frost. And then for Unholy, we're just going to say, oh yeah, it's all the same things, except unfortunately you don't have an AoE stun. But let's go over the Frost ones, specifically centralized around Frost's basic rotation, because this is some of the most insane damage you can do. And remember, I am going to show a video with this, but first let's just talk about what it is. Remember, you don't even need Fleshcraft up because you got Carver's Eye, you're running Bonesmiths, so this is it. You're going to change your kill target. You're going to grip one player from the back. You're going to pick a caster or a healer. Generally, I pick R Shamans because they're so squishy. So if you can find an R Shaman, if they have an R Shaman on their team, grip that. You're changing your kill target. Let's say it's a Ret, a Lock, anything high priority that takes a lot of damage. Ret does, Lock does, Frost Mage does, R Shamans do, but R Shamans are generally going to be in the back because they're a healer. So you're going to change that first target, the Lock or the Ret Paladin. Then you're going to grip one of the backwards targets because you want to grab one more person into this mess that you could possibly grab. So pick a Shaman, generally, maybe an H-Pal. H-Pal's really good too. Say that's them, and you're going to grip them in, right? And you're going to have two people clumped, but then you're going to do the thing that you do in threes. You have chains on this guy. You're going to press Remorseless Winter to set up the first ticks of your AoE stun. So when everybody gets pulled in, the AoE stun is already going off and you're already got your lockdown on them. Then you're going to press your one button macro, which I have a guide for, but just to show it up on the screen right now, it's the every single one of your offensive cooldowns macro. You're going to press that button. And then you're going to do this. Rhyme proc, obliterate, Rhyme proc, obliterate, Rhyme proc, obliterate, chill streak, Rhyme proc, obliterate, Frostworm's Fury, Rhyme proc, obliterate, right? And the Frostworm's Fury came a couple globals into that mess because you don't want to overlap it with your Dead of Winter stun, Doi, right? You don't want to press these two things. You don't want these two things to happen at the same time. That's not valuable. You can't super stun anybody. You can just stun them the one time. So how that looks effectively is change. You're going to grip this guy, right? Remorseless, Limb Go, Rhyme proc, obliterate, Rhyme proc, obliterate, Chill Streak, Rhyme proc, obliterate, Frostworm, stunned everything, Rhyme proc, obliterate. And you did 62,000 DPS and everybody on their team is dead, right? And that is exactly the rotation. So I'm going to go over to a video now. I'm going to show how this is gone. I actually have some timestamps for myself written down on my little notepad right here. I'm going to show how this looks, how you can completely destroy a team fight. And remember, these maps that we talked about, there's a team fight on them. Even the ones that are not centralized a team fight, there's one. Like Deepwind, right? Deepwind Gorge. This has 5 bases in it. But that middle one, Market, that's where the team fight is. That's where you're going to be. And that's where you need to do this go. What about Eye of the Storm? Well, there's 4 bases on that too, but there's the middle point with a flag. and that's where the team fight is, and that's where you're going to be. Temple, pretty much one consecutive team fight. Silver Shard, team fight in the main cart. The main cart is Lava. Lava is the fastest cart to cap. The team fight centralizes around the most centralized, perfect location to be. Lava is the most important place because it caps faster than all the other bases. That just gets you more points. That's how it works. So that's why more people tend to go Lava. So at Silver Shard, the team fight will be at Lava. At Deepwind, the team fight will be at Middle. At Eots, Eye of the Storm, the team fight will be on the flag. You're finding that team fight and you're doing this go. So let's bring up, finally, without further ado, here it is, video examples, what you guys have all been waiting for. So, as you can see, we are in a Gilneas here. 661 to 264 is the score. We are winning, but the game does not end just because you capped twice in the beginning. So we have to make sure the team fight's still going, that we're still doing what we need to do, and that we're still wiping them so they can never counter wipe us and take the base back and win the game. You can see right now, I've got Remorseless Winter up, A-Bomb Lemon 6. So I'm going to be starting to go soon, but I'm not going to be starting my go with any damage. Instead, I'm going to be starting my go with my voice, because DKs do a lot of cleave, and you can see that one guy doing 60k DPS in the training dummies, that's crazy. We got to do that as much as possible, but also we got to make sure that our teammates are synergizing with our go as much as possible, because guess what? Demon Hunters cleave, Locks cleave, Warriors cleave, Windwalkers cleave, other DKs cleave. Lots of things can do way more damage when their entire team is grouped up in a pile than just you. So instead of me starting this go off with any button, I'm starting this go off by saying, yo, I have Limb go in 10, probably a few seconds ago, I have Limb go in 10. Make sure to save your cooldown, so I'm going to do a go on me in 10 seconds, right? And when you get good with this, people will get the flow of your 2-minute go being so destructive that they'll kind of start pulling cooldowns. But again, you talk to them. Limb go in 30, guys, we win the game then. Limb go in 10, Limb go in 5, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. You're going to call out that you're going to do that go. They're all going to have you focus. They can see you exactly where you are. Right now, I'm in the middle of a team here. I got a Druid, I got a DH, I got a Shaman, I got a Paladin over here, and a Druid up there. If I can herd all these people by using the slappy hands to move myself over and create a pile of people, not just me is going to benefit that, but everybody. In fact, if you can get so synergistic with it, you can also start building around it. I'm going to show you the secret sauce right now, actually. I'm going to show you guys something that's a little cheat code as a result of what you can do with synergistic builds, interesting PvP talent combinations, and a perfect DK to pull it all together, right? A perfect DK go to pull it all together, and that's going to be with my lock. So first, let's take a look. Remorseless Winter is up and now. 6 seconds until A-Bomb Limb. In about 2 seconds, I'll probably pop that Remorseless Winter. So let's play this. Here comes Remorseless Winter activated right now. You can see this is going to start ticking up that AoE stun. So 2 people are going to get stunned while the rest of them are getting limbed in, and then they're going to get stunned as it builds up, and you're actually just going to cascade stuns. You can see right now, 1 IBF out of this cap. They can't stun me anymore during this go, and here comes the limb go. But what's that on the ground? What is this? What is this green cryptic symbol? What is going on here? This looks really interesting. What is about to happen? Well, that is called Bane of Havoc. It's an ability not from me, but from my Warlock, Lafandra-Tichondrius. And what that allows them to do is every single target ability that hits any player is going to also hit every other player right here in this circle. Now, if you didn't have a great DK coordinating goes, this wouldn't really matter. Why don't they just go somewhere else? They don't have to be in this exact spot in the ground. Look how much space there is around Battle for Gilneas. There's so much space they could possibly just walk over here, or walk over there, walk over here. You don't have to be here, but that's the might of synergistic goes. I didn't give them a choice in the matter. They are now all pulled into this pile. They're about to get stunned and pseudo-CC'd. So what's going to happen is Mr. Lafandra is going to use single target abilities, namely, I don't know, Chaos Bolt, and instead of hitting one of these guys, it's going to hit 6. So not only am I doing my perfect go, right? We're going to do the Limb go. You can see it's on cooldown. I'm going to spend that Rhyme proc, get Howling Blast on everybody, get that Frost Fever on everybody. Then I'm going to generate a Killing Machine, Howling Blast, Killing Machine, Howling Blast. You'll see that right here on the game. Something else is going to happen. Play, Rhyme proc, Obliterate, pause. You guys see anything on the screen that might be very interesting to you? Anything on the screen right now that you could say, wow, that's not exactly what I expected, but holy cow, that might be pretty fun for me to try as well. Oh, it's this. It's the 6 bolts on the screen right now. 6 bolts affecting 6 unsuspecting players. Not only did they get hit for the A-bomb limb, the stun, the rhyme proc, the obliterate, the rhyme proc, now they have to take, all of them have to take their own personalized chaos bolt right to the dome. And this is what a limb go looks like. Do you think this is only going to happen at 1800? A-bomb limb grips people even at 1900, at 2K, at 2100, at 2200. They still get pulled in. And with proper AoE stun usage and limb positioning, you can do this to win games. And here's what happens when it goes off. Goodbye, everybody on their team. Priest form, dead DH, Guardian's gone, right? That's what it looks like. So yes, sure, you've got the power of the limb go. It's easy to do it on the dummies. Now you got to make sure that you're centralized in the team. You got to find that center point that has the most players around it. So you're not just gripping people in, but you're maneuvering your limb like you're like the eye of a hurricane. You're moving that center point to where the most people are, so it continues limbing people in around you into that center. And you're also using your voice. I called Bane Go on me right now. You're using your voice to coordinate with your teammates, so not just you get to have fun, but everybody else gets to have fun. You know what? Who doesn't get to have fun? The enemy team, when they all die in 3 seconds. So that my first example, my first video example, is not actually showing off myself, but showing off how you, as a player, can make not just your own damage obscene, but everybody's damage obscene. And you're not sacrificing. It's not a gimmick. You're not sacrificing into anything to do it. This is just Frost DK. How Frost DK plays. This is why this is so incredible. This is why DK is so defining in RBGs right now, because your standard go is this. I don't have to run any gimmicks for it. I'm using the right covenant, the right conduits, the right damage, the right stats, the right everything, the right rotation. But in addition to what I bring, everybody else can bring something on top of it just by playing the standard DK rotation. And that's what it looks like. So there's a limb go. We're going to show one more of those in this game, but of course I know you guys want varied examples, so I have 2 more maps and 2 different games to show you. But we're going to show one more for this game. I got little timestamps written for myself. This one is over here. And this one's a totally different scenario. I like this one actually. You can see, you know that it's going to happen because of that green crap on the ground. But here's what happens, right? I was floating for a second. I used my ice walk to get in here, and boom, let's already pause this. You can see this actually doesn't look as good for us as the last scenario, right? In the last scenario, they were all dead, we were all happy, but what's going on here? Druid taking a ton of damage. Ori, one of our top DPS right now, nearly dead. 7 melee on a lock. You can see my lock in this bundle of name. There's just a lock getting blendered, my boomkin getting blendered. This looks way more advantageous rather, for their team than for ours. But DK can stop that, right? You might have an instinct. You might have an instinct to go in there with Frostworm's Fury and just stun them all and be like, okay, I'll peel for you. You don't have to do that, because you can see I have Limb Go up right now. Bottom of the screen, Limb Go Remorseless. So I don't want to waste my go trying to peel. I have another button that we were talking about. It's called Blinding Sleet. Blinding Sleet can peel all these players without putting them on stun DR, allowing me to have a fantastic 5-second CC that's off stun DR, allowing me to peel for my teammates, keep them alive, and then do my go and get a counter pressure better than if I was doing it with a DR'd stun. I can do it with a full stun now, but that's not it, right? So let's take a look. Move in there. Blind instantly. Call that I'm peeling for them, by the way, so they start moving. You see that? How Lyra immediately dips out of there. Ori's going to be okay. Lafondra's in the pile, but he's full health, and we got the blind on 5 or 6 people here. You can see some pets blinded as well. Then we're going to drop a zone on the pile. That's my zone. You can see 2-minute cooldown. There's one from them as well, and that's mine. So I drop my zone on this as well. That's the 80%er zone, and that's going to the blind, get some trinkets, and then the zone is going to easily take care of this situation that looks so damaging for us, turn it into a much more valuable situation for us. So zone is down. Are they dead? No. Lafondra, in the middle of a melee cleave. Dead? No. Now what we can do is, you can see, magical button. Remorseless Winter is being procced. We're going to get that AoE stun started, and all these people who are piled up are going to get limb go'd, and the people that are running away have nowhere to go. Limb Go comes in, call it out to my teammates. Lafondra is still alive. I was keeping my teammates alive, so my Limb Go becomes more impactful because I can be helped by my teammates. And now we turn this around. What's that? Is that Bane down? We know how damaging that button can be. 8 coils come out and their entire team goes from advantageous to deceased in seconds. Seconds flat. That's what happens to these players, right? And now there are no players left on their team. There were 8 players before, and now there are 0. What happened? A good go happened, right? We did not waste stun DR panicking and trying to peel. We did not let our teammates die by just walking in there and trying to do a limb go before peeling for them in any meaningful way. The blind keeps them alive. The zone keeps them alive. My lock surrounded by 6 melee still alive, and he was able to participate in that go. All we needed was we didn't even need the bolts that time. A coil, a con flag, my limb go, and they're all dead. So it's not just about the go on the dummies. It's not even just about doing a go and calling it out in time. It's about understanding how to set it up even when the situation is not that good for your team, right? Because not everything is going to go the exact way you want it to. So in that situation, I was coming into a team fight where we were losing and we turned it into an immediate win. I'm not saying it was the most miraculous thing. Again, it's just about, you can do this easily. You can all do this. This is not something that I'm the only one who is the keeper of the 2 buttons for Frost DK's rotation. I'm not the only one who can do this. Absolutely. You can do exactly that, and I'm certain that you will. So there's a couple of examples of how to use this go to either turn a team fight, to continue winning a team fight, to establish a team fight. Let's go to another map, and let's talk about something entirely different. So I got the timestamp right here. Let's take a look at it. So, 4:43, a perfect pause location. So here's another situation entirely. This game's not going well for us. Their alliance, they have 222 points and 4 orbs. We have 40 points and 0 orbs. That's not very good for us. You can see I am a lone DK. My entire team is off here on the other side. You can't even see them on the screen. They're so far off. But I can't just sit here and do nothing, right? I'm a DK. And here's some descriptors about my toolkit that allows me to make a situational decision that not a lot of people can make. I have IBF, AMS, Lichborn, and still Trinket, Pact, Deathstrike, and my Limb Go. If I walked in there and didn't use those things because I was trying to hold them, right? I didn't want to use AMS because, well, what if they turn on me after AMS is down and then I just die? That would be a bad use of it. I don't want to use it too early. Or if I did an IBF, well, I needed to save it for the next stun go. What does that even mean? In 3s, you can get punished for IBFing and AMSing the opener. Because if you then get swapped to, you can get punished pretty hard. They CC your healer, they catch you in a stun, you don't have any tools, you used them too aggressively, and now you're dead. That's not what's happening in RBGs. There's 3 healers on my team and 7 DPS. It's not like they're coordinating a perfect swap go to one guy and not getting punished for it. There's still 9 other players on our team that can do things. You can't just all go one guy on the assumption that he used 1 defensive. If my healers keep me alive through whatever stun that is, and then I press Deathstrike afterwards, that might have been a totally wasted go. And all they had to judge off of was that he didn't have anti-magic shell, right? There's so many cooldowns, so many players, that sometimes instead of saying, I'm just gonna hold that for the next go and then dying instantly and being like, well, where did you guys didn't heal me? Sometimes you take it upon yourself to use your own personals because you know that your team has so much left for you. And here's why I'm gonna say all that right now. Because I'm about to go into 4 players. And if you go into 4 players at the same time, all with orbs, they could do a lot of damage to you. They can coil you, they could fear you, and you can just die in it, right? So if you pre-AMS, pre-IBF, set your Limb Go down and go, you can counter pressure them so quickly and they have nothing they can do about it. AMS prevents all magical CC. There's no buttons they could press. These players could press right now. IBF prevents all stuns, physical or magical. There is nothing that they can press. So instead of trying to hold this for a rainy day and the rainy day never comes, you lose the game for no reason, why don't you press it and win the game for your team on the spot? Because there is no answer. They all have orbs, they all take more damage. There is no answer for what I can do here. So I am not going to run in here and waste time. I'm gonna chains, remorse, and AMS. And look at them all immediately turn to me. Do you see this? 3 people gunning me down. If I would have just sat here and been like, well, I don't want to be an idiot who just presses everything in the opener. I don't want to use all my cooldowns for no reason. If I would have done that, I'd probably get coiled here, Star Surge once by an orb carrier who gets a damage buff. Don't know if you knew that, but they get a huge damage buff for having these. Die instantly, and then I was like, whoa, that was heroic. I walked in there and died. Wow, now we lose. You guys all suck. This is not my fault, right? Instead of being that kind of guy, take it upon yourself. AMS to CC, pop your CDs, and go. And this is what it looks like, right? Lim go now, as a result of me being unCCable, sure, you can see it, I used AMS and IBF, but as a result of being unCCable, there are no buttons these players can press to peel me. And if they're taking 60% more damage and I have every offensive cooldown in the game, that's really bad for them. So I'll unplay this, unpause this. Lock dies, Priest dies, Druid dies, other Druid, well, he dies, right? And that, I was going in there and you couldn't even see my teammates on the other side of the screen. But if we wait, if we delay, if we hold our cooldowns, if we let them kite, they were already up 250 points with every orb. If we do that, we're wasting the incredible toolkit of our class to be able to do stuff like that. And you think that only works at like 1800, 1900? Players take more damage with the orb at higher MMR too. 60k hits kill people at higher MMR too. AMS prevents CC at higher MMR too. And with higher MMR, you're going to have higher MMR teammates, which means they're going to be closer in, ready to do that destructive go with you. So you have to be ready to use your defensives offensively in situation where it demands it. And when they have 4 orbs and all orb carriers could possibly die to your go, that is a situation that demands it. That is what happens, right, when you use your toolkit properly. And instead of just being like, nah, I gotta hold AMS because I wouldn't have it for a whole 55 seconds. That is what happens when you use things as quickly and aggressively as possible on a map that literally demands that. Temple is the most aggressive map. Playing passively here is so bad. And of course, their entire team dies. We go on to win this game handily. It was a great go, but we had a bad start and we were behind. So sometimes you have to take advantage of a good situation that was given to you. So that is another example of the Temple of the A-bomb limb go. But this time, instead of an emphasis on your teammates, it's an emphasis on what you can do to make yourself unpeelable, unkiteable, undisruptible. Pretty much a juggernaut, the class fantasy of DK as it is. But we got one more video here. I'm gonna get the timestamp for that real quick. This is 5:23. We got one more video here. This is the toolkit of DK in action. Of course, you may notice that I have the flag in my hands. I do view RBGs a lot. I don't recommend flag carrying as a Frost DK, but it does show you, I just wanted a visual example of what I mean by Death Strike heals for a lot, you better frickin' press it. So here's a DH and a Priest on me. I'm going to do my limb go here. I need to get rid of anybody. I'm saying that right now on stream, actually. I'm saying I need to get rid of anybody that could possibly be here because I think that Hunter can one-shot me. So I'm going to kill the DH right now. I'm going to use my limb go to kill the DH. And I do that, of course. It's very difficult to heal through a limb go with every cooldown pressed. And now the Hunter is going to do, I don't know, pretty much nuclear damage. All right, so you can see I'm taking a lot of damage from the Hunter right here. But this is the might. Right now, I'm about to press Death Strike. Death Strike as an ability in RBGs is everything that I said it was. So I really hope if you're taking anything away from survivability in this video, it's that button. It's that button right there, because now I go from dead to 100% health. You can see I went up for a little while, slingshotted back and forth. Every single Death Strike heals from 30 to 60k. And that button is so valuable that even with a flag in your hands, getting bursted by a Hunter, doing a double tapped rapid fire go, you should still be able to live. So this button, just now visually, is one of your best buttons for being able to make sure that you can stay alive in a team fight and survive to do your disruption. Because again, you are a juggernaut in RBGs. You do that much healing. And of course here, I'm just going to change Death's Advance. You actually do. It actually shows off a couple other tools you have here, because I am about to cap the flag as a Frost DK versus a Guardian. I get a Fleshcraft up here. I changed an IBF to stun, D8 out, and cap the flag. And that's kind of like every single ability that I talked about as far as DK's defensive cooldown being used one by one. We got Death Strike to heal to full, IBF to get out of the stun, Death's Advance to be unpeelable, and then I just run freely, Fleshcraft around the pillar, and cap the flag. So again, this team, This game, maybe a little lower MMR for sure. I don't think I should be able to flag carry as a DK. I mean, that's something you're not going to try and replicate at 2700. But again, it shows you, remember, the core concept is the more damage you take overall, the more healing Death Strike does. And Death Strike does a lot of healing. So those are some visual examples of the Go and one silly example of how survivable DK can be. That should help kind of take all of the things that I said over the course of this video and give them one more double down so you can just get a feel for how this should be working. But that's DK in RBGs. I promised, though, that I would go over the Unholy rotation as well and give it a kind of a silly jab that it's effectively the Frost rotation and that you just do your AoE burst, but instead of having an AoE stun, you simply don't. And I can show that right now because that is what it's like. You're going to do your full AoE burst rotation, A-Bomb down, Unholy Frenzy, APOC, Blight, Dark Transform, A-Bomb Limb. You can even D&D in there and start spamming wounds, and then Epidemic. That's the only other button that I would press that isn't kind of like intuitive. You're just building runic power and then Epidemic. Because Epidemic scales extremely fast with multiple targets. It's actually like quadratic scaling, which means more targets make it do way more damage, exponentially more damage. You can see on my meters here is 6% of my damage. It's the fourth one down, but that's still 55,000 damage. But as 7 targets, 6 targets, 7, 8 targets are added, right? It just scales up so dramatically that Epidemic ends up being a huge drop button. And of course, here's another cool thing you just get to see. Oh, my A-Bomb Limb does 250,000. Now, you might minus some of that from being in a PvP environment. Of course, people have damage reduction, but then you add more because you're hitting more than just 4 dummies. You're actually hitting 6 dummies. So that's going to be an enormous amount of damage. And Unholy, of course, can pad so hard. It just doesn't have the AoE stun. So like I promised, it does have enormous viability, especially while you're giving everybody Necrotic Aura. That's going to be massive. Play with a lot of locks and boomies. Maybe you'll like Unholy better than Frost if you really do want to. But it really does have that AoE nuclear setup. Just no AoE stun to bring it all together. And that's not the end of the world. Again, Unholy with Epidemic spamming and A-Bomb Limb doing 250,000 damage a button press certainly could turn the tides of a team fight. And that, my friends, is all I have for you. That is my RBG guide for DK. I know there's a ton more questions that you could have for each specific map, but I do not believe that I could show each specific map with a 10-minute game and VOD review for the whole thing, as that would be a 5-hour video, and I don't even know if this one isn't 5 hours already, because I lose track of time when I'm just blabbing like this. So if you could, come to my stream at any point. I do RBGs pretty much all the time, and if you have a specific question for a map that I'm on and you want to see a visual representation of it, I will answer anything that you ask. I will try and be as committed, vocal, and defined, detailed as a question answerer on stream as I can possibly be, and then that will give you the visual representation you need for maybe more specific things. You're like saying, Flark, that was a great video, but I don't know, I still don't really get Silver Shard, or I still don't really get Eye of the Storm. Can you explain that a little better? I hope to do the best that I can to get you more information on my stream with visual representations if you need it, but I hope this was able to help in any way. And of course, you also have some definitive answers over the build, stats, rotation, gearing, legendaries, conduits, covenants, everything that you could possibly have answered for an RBG environment to push Hero of the Horde or Alliance respectively if you want those titles. And I hope this helps. But you guys have a wonderful season, and thank you for watching my videos. I'm going to keep everything you guys said to heart and keep working on the suggestions that you guys give me. Thanks again, and peace.